Welcome to Ike Comics Draw Process, page 15 of my comic, First Sun and Sword today, episode 2. And as always, I'll draw the comic page and share my thoughts, process about my development, and things like that in a way that is hopefully useful to you. And we have the last page before we switch to a different scene, to Farah traveling and visiting a merchant, sort of a mobster, to try to get access to medication, basically antibiotics to treat Sword's infection. So she's going where she's got to go to get that, which happens to be kind of a dangerous thing to do, but she's kind of desperate. So we're going to be getting there in the next page. This page is on a page turn, so it's, I like to do that into the scene on the page turn is always nice. This page we're going to see Sun going outside with the girl, noticing some men that are questioning people, so they're clearly actively looking for him and Sword and Farah, and so he runs back inside and hides behind the door, hoping they don't come. So we'll just leave it there as we go back to Farah. I've been thinking about the process. There's so many things I've been thinking. I've been struggling this week. It's been a real challenging week to feel good, to feel free, to feel like things are working out, to feel the pressure off my chest. So just issues in my life with kids and stuff that stack up. But that had me thinking about sacrifice, like the pain of creating, which is an interesting topic. And then I've been thinking about the creative process. Kind of gets into psychology or something, or philosophy. So there's a variety of personalities and approaches. I guess I would say, I think I'll just make a case for my way of thinking here. I think people forget, it's always the case in any field, they forget that that when we turn things into rules, into measurable things, and ones and zeros, numbers, it is an abstraction. People that do math and then they think the world is math, reality is math. And look how true it is. It's clearly true. Yes, it's internally consistent once you turn it into numbers. But what is lost once you do that? Now, there's a lot we can accomplish once we turn things into numbers. But what is left out? So when it comes to the individual, if I were to turn you into your height, weight, race, gender, personality type, all these things, if I just quantified everything, did anything get left out? And I would believe yes. I would believe there's something subjectively, being you is an experience, is a certain thing that no numbers are going to fully capture. And yet these numbers and then these systems that we develop from that can really help us accomplish things. Helps us understand and deal with things and create and build things, because the math works. We need to have these understandings, but we get such confidence in it that we forget that they're not the thing in itself. This comes up with therapy, which this is not a therapy channel, but I'm a therapist by day. And when I'm helping someone in therapy, sometimes they come in with this, and I think it's it's part of our culture. They come in with wanting to get the sort of quantified, understanding. Like tell me the diagnosis, what is turn me into numbers, turn this problem into numbers for me, and then I'll know what to do. And there's the idea that that's what the therapist is there for. Or turn it into numbers, and then you can apply the system, the right treatment system to me, and of course I'm going to get the good result from that because the data shows that that works. So there's a lot of pressure for people to do that. But I believe that it's the subjective experience of that person that needs to be experienced, that needs to be processed, made sense of, brought to light and into awareness. It's the subjective experience that really matters. And the more we objectify it and quantify it, the actually further in a way, the further we get from experiencing it. Which we're working on the numbers and the understanding instead of the thing in itself. So, there's a variety of opinions on that among psychologists and therapists, but I guess you could put me in the camp of more Jungian or person-centered, the idea that the subjective and relationship with the client is what makes a difference, is what helps and what heals and what helps people change. So, that's an example just from my realm, but it's an example of what I'm saying about this, keeping it subjective. So there are people that draw from strict following of rules. They have a way that they structure a rib cage and the hips and the figure and the size and shape of each element, and then they build their drawing on top of that, the details. They build it on top of the strict rules that they're following. And it can be very efficient. It can help get a consistent look to a book. It can yield great results, just like I was saying about things we can do in other areas like building skyscrapers from our knowledge here. But it is that approach can be guilty of forgetting that it is an abstraction. It isn't the thing in itself. That the rib cage, the hips, the shape of these figures, the figures in space, that even perspective itself, the idea of a vanishing point and this grid that things are on, these are abstractions. And you become an expert of that one understanding. Let's say down that path is becoming the expert of that one understanding, that one set of rules that you can follow in drawing. But what about drawing it a different way? What about letting it be expressive, unique? I guess getting back to sequential storytelling. What is the story? What are you communicating? If you were telling a verbal story, just by word to someone, is it really just rules you should follow to communicate, or is there something else going on in the way you might use expression, inflection, word choice in the moment? And I mean not written word especially, but spoken. Like telling a story, a bedtime story, especially in that case. There's more to it than just following rules. And so when we're storytelling, what is our art communicating? If you're following the strict, rules, if you've turned it into a system, then you can forget that one of the things you're communicating with your story is you're blind to. You've sort of, because you believe in your system, you just take it as is, as the thing in itself. You are blind to the fact that you're using that system because you think it's just how it is. And the person reading it, you hope, is of the same mind. That when they see that, maybe they like that style, they see it that way too, and they just go with it. That's a limitation on what storytelling can be that's unnecessary. There can be much more variety to storytelling styles, to how we communicate things. You can just, look at comics that are much more expressive and loose and kind of wild, and like Craig Thompson's Blankets, this kind of much looser art style that seems kind of drawn in this expressive way. It's there isn't this, you don't get the feeling of rigid structures. One way people call this is like a more academic, maybe academic isn't the right word, more like artsy, where it's like you're self-expressive. But there's something about that is expressive, and it can communicate a lot of meaning in the forms, in the figures, that you would not have been able to communicate with the other set of rules, the kind of traditional American comics figures, the way they're constructed, the rules that are followed. Yeah, my path has been to, let's say, maybe I'll back up a step. How do I know how to move forward? So the rules can be helpful. The number, turning things into numbers, into a system can help us accomplish things. But how do I know if I'm blinded to how much that's a part of my storytelling unnecessarily? Let's put it that way. I think of it like paying attention to the rules, the systems that other people have developed, trying them on, understanding them. This is helping you gain awareness of a logical understanding, a sort of cognitive understanding of things. But then we don't want to, in my opinion, simply create cognitively. That we're also trying to create from a more full human place, like from emotion and unconscious and so on. So there's also this paying attention to my internal experience, my subjective experience. What feels natural to me? How is it that I seem to like to draw? That if I'm not worried about what I should draw, like what the system says it should be, or the market says it should be, or the number of likes, the whatever pressure of what it should be. If I don't pay attention to those things, but pay attention to my inner feeling apart from that, then I can begin to bring into awareness and access and integrate unconscious drives, emotions, and sort of an internal personal experience that I'm gaining confidence in, that I'm getting more developed in, that is not reducible to numbers and systems, and is not really even reducible to words, which are also abstractions. And that's a really important part to me. That is the magic. That is what it means to be my practice of the arts, is, I guess, this, but I think I will add a piece here if you're still following along, if you're still tracking with what I'm saying. Being the practice of my art is sort of this what I was just saying about growing in self-awareness, and sort of the inner experience, while also paying attention to the objective and the outer experience and logic and cognitive thing. But it's also developing my practice. So figuring out not just an inner experience that is in my mind and my soul or whatever, but an inner experience and a practice. That's what I do in the environment, which requires this awareness and paying attention to how I am interacting with the environment and how it's affecting those inner states and how it's affecting the result in the art and, the objective and cognitive stuff. That through that dialogue, that interaction between inner and outer, I can learn and develop what practices, such as doing certain studies in the sketchbook, whatever, what practices are the most effective, are the most in line with where I'm going, that are most going to help me get where I need to go, where I'm going. And it'll be unique for each person. When you go to art school, you might be submitted. I mean, I would assume you would, which I did not do. That was not my schooling background. But you would be submitted, as I've heard from others, to a system. It's like, here's what you must do. You know nothing. You are a beginner. You need to submit yourself to this process, what the experts have figured out. You do this system, you do these practices each day in this way, with these goals in mind. And at the end of this process, you will figure out who you are as an artist to some degree, but you'll have a foundation. Sort of, you're going to figure yourself out. You're going to figure out the external, the cognitive stuff, the rules, the systems. You're going to be well on your way. And I'm not opposed to that, because I think it is possible through the interaction with outside forces, like even pressures or like rules and systems you must follow. You could also develop your inner experience and kind of figure out your own practice. But I would think of that experience, such as in art school, with that in this sort of imposed on you rules and process. That is simply the start of your journey. Like you're going to do that, and then once you're done with that, you take off the training wheels, and now you've got your life ahead of you to really figure it out for yourself. And there are people who are going to get out of school and then really lose motivation, flounder, not figure out their own practice. They need someone to tell them what to do. Or maybe they find a way to do that, but I mean, to find a way to have someone tell them what to do, work for the paycheck, what the boss tells you to do or whatever. But the core of being an artist to me is just, it's not that. It's not working for the paycheck. That's not an artist. That it's this whole process I'm describing of the inner and outer experience and tailoring your environment and developing. And yeah, you get works of art, you get pieces of art out of an artist, and that's awesome. And I love to see great pieces of art. But to me, those are the byproduct of the system, the environment, the person. The practice they're engaged in results in certain works of art with certain qualities. We tend to praise and like worship the sort of these hero stories. Like there's the genius, the brilliant genius that that's just who they are. That's just what they do. And there are people that are vastly genius, which really sucks. It's kind of a pain for the rest of us. But one of the things you'll see with geniuses like that is that they trust their inner voice. They say, I don't care how you guys, teach this. This is what I've figured out. I'm going to continue to figure it out how I figured out. I'm going to make art the way I make art. I don't care what you think it is. That's a common thing. But regardless of that detail, those geniuses are still practicing their art. They're becoming their practice. We forget that. It's easier to worship the genius instead of see the reality of the situation. So, I think I don't know if that's hopeful or hopeless, because in some sense it's hopeful because we can all develop our practice and become the artists we can become, but it's also kind of lacking in hope because what if your environment is not well set up for you to be able to focus on your art and develop your art practice? What if you're ill-equipped, for that, and have other things in life getting in the way, and that can really, that can be a real downer, because it means a real hindrance on your development. That's actually something I've been experiencing lately, is a lot of struggles in life that are a hindrance. At least they feel like a hindrance. I don't know if they really are. Because a lot of times I can feel like things are too hard and that they're getting in the way of what I want, but when I really look at it, I can handle it. It's what I needed. It's not hurting me. I think it goes back to storytelling, sequential storytelling, that the things that happen in life that keep me from what I feel I would want to do with my practice, let's say getting really good at drawing, the things that get in the way of that are also the things that enrich my personal story and experience, that enrich my life and my ability to tell a story with humanity, with spirit, with soul in it. Sometimes, right? I'm not saying that's always the case, but if I'm becoming, more developed as an individual, as a person, having a painful, a rich experience, then my stories can be better. And the storytelling will be better. Even if my, draftsmanship it doesn't improve as much as I would have preferred. Even if I spend less, time producing less quantity of books or pages, or less quality in details and draftsmanship, but again, it's not reducible to like ones and zeros. It's not reducible to how many pages did you complete, and how polished did they look. One of the things that subjectively is being communicated, in my work, is its rawness, is its lack of draftsmanship. That the particular kind of roughness of it that I put into it, that's coming from me. For some people, it's simply, that's wrong, that's bad. But in some ways, no. In some ways, that's just their opinion, because they're looking at a system and they're measuring things against the system instead of seeing it for what it is. And then the people that are open to looking at it for what it is are going to see qualities that might be meaningful, that might help the story, help it communicate. And so, even that roughness that I might want to, erase from my work, that could be an important piece of it. So I guess that's one of the reasons I would hesitate to really push myself. So, there's some sacrifice and hard work in making comics, but to really like grind, really push out quantity and quality based on the rules, the systems of how it should be. I could do that. I'm capable of doing that, but I hesitate to do it. Because it would be blaspheming the Holy Spirit, let's say. It would be, metaphorically, it would be presuming that I know what's best. that I can say that applying that system to that clear result, that's what matters, but that's not always the case. I mean, humans presume that a lot, and we cause a lot of damage to the planet and each other because we say, well, I'm right because in my system it's right, and we ignore all the side effects of it. So not only could pushing myself too hard damage my personal life, like cause me to burn up in my own flames, or like become too hardened and rough and angry and bitter or whatever, and cause issues in my relationships. And like, not only could it do that, but it could make the work worse, because it could lose some of those qualities, some of the what it is, what might give it value that we don't even measure in our ignorance. So some humility in thinking what we know would be best. And so that's where it becomes very much subjective, very much being a full human being, kind of really allowing yourself to be a whole person and not just a machine that creates art. Which I think applies to any art and art form. But especially if you're a storyteller, like sequential storytelling, even more so that than maybe other art, especially commercial art, something that if there's a certain look and that's wanted by the client that you need to produce, then maybe you have a reason to push yourself and to force yourself to do it in that particular way. But at that point, it's a job, it's work. And there's nothing wrong with work. I work, in another field than art. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's still work, and it is not the same thing as developing yourself as an artist. Wow. Well, this has been fun. A fun deep dive here in my thoughts on this. I got more into it than I thought I would. I wasn't sure where I was going with it when I started. Let's shift gears. I think I said enough on that. Using the G Pen, some changes in my inking that I'm embracing. One thing I'm trying to do is capture more, I don't want to say details, but smaller things in the background. Let's put it that way. That when I used to use a micron pen with a dead line weight, even then I might lift the pen a bit or move it a little faster as I lift it off the page. There's a little gesture, kind of feel to the lines sometimes. And there have been times when I really tried to hold it flat, hold it level, and keep all my lines totally dead. Like no kind of life or uniqueness to them. They would just strictly be, if the line is just 1/8 of an inch going down, it's just perfectly straight and perfectly the same thickness, start to end point. I'm moving away from that because, that is so... rigid, abstracted, that if I wanted to have a page where there's really small scribbly people, really small people in the background, or really small foliage or something, then I can't show it. I just have to not draw it at all. And you see this with styles like Mike Mignola. There's it's simplified and abstracted to the point that like we really bring the focus on the focus point in a 4 midground, and we let the background vanish. Like there's going to be certain black background elements, but you're not going to add a lot of detail to things further away. You're not going to have like this first shot here where there's this giant, like a big city street where people become the size of a tiny line. Like, because once you do that, with that abstract dead line, how do you convey that that's a person if there's no character in the line? I'm moving towards adding more character in the line, that there can be a little curve and change in thickness, a little character in the line, so that maybe when someone looks at it, they get something out of it. It's more than just one little dead line, but it feels like a leaf or a tree, or it feels like a person somewhat in motion or something. So I'm trying not to shy away from showing that in the drawings, and then as I show it, I'm learning more and more to allow for expressive lines, cartoony kind of lines, which I'm able to do better by using a G pen instead of a pen, or like a brush would be great at that as well. Allow for more variety in some ways than a G pen. So, or any nib. Yeah, so I'm seeing a lot more of that, smaller details. I mean, not, allowing myself to show a little bit of hay in that yard, a pile of hay in the corner is what those little lines are. Or little lines on the street that indicate a little where maybe wagon wheels have kind of dug in, or people walking, letting those little scribbles that are clearly like expressive lines that are not really there. I mean, they shouldn't be that black, that thick. It's muddying up. It's not as clear as a simplified design, of panels that I've done in the past. It's more with the different mindset. This is much more, cartooning. I mean, the thought of drawing rain, inking raindrops, conveying rain through lines, for example. Like, rain is not thick, heavy black lines, but you might draw them on the page to communicate the rain and to communicate the feel of the rain. And of course it goes much further than that, because then it comes down to like the cartooning of our figures and stuff. If we're going to draw like certain expressions that are like obviously not how faces move, but it's how cartoons work, like Charlie Brown, Calvin and Hobbes, this kind of thing. It communicates story and meaning in the lines that are not at all representative of something actually there that you actually see. So I'm embracing that and the messiness that comes with that by putting a lot more lines on a panel on the page. There's a lot more embracing just that expression that might turn out too messy, lacking focus. I've spent quite a few years, though, focused on keeping that reined in and focusing just on clear design, clear communication. So, of course, the hope is that I can introduce the chaos and stay on point with the clarity. So that's the latest, journey that I'm on. And here is the finished page. The colors, what I'm doing here is, it's earth tones, and the further things away things are, the more green and blue they are. And then as they get closer, they tend to move towards an earthier green and a yellow and a tan, reds and oranges. And then a highlight sometimes of more of this blue-green, a much more saturated one. But that's sort of the idea with the colors there. And that's the finished page and the close of the scene for now until we come back to it after a bit. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was fun for me to get into that stuff. Kind of weird stuff. I hope it made a little sense. If you have questions, I'll try to answer. But other than that, I'll see you next week. So be the practice of your art and encourage others to do the same and find others that do the same. Peace.